So in his own words, it looks like Rashford's leaving United right now. Because he said, for me personally, I think I'm ready for a new challenge and the next steps. Now this can only mean one thing, and that is that he is leaving the club. Especially since he's talking about plans after the club, after he leaves, how he's going to leave the club. And this means we have to cover two things. Number one, is it valid for Rashford to be leaving now, and what legacy is he leaving behind? Number two, are we right for chasing him out of the club in the first place? And should he be given more time? Well, first things first, let's talk about his legacy. So, Rashford has been here, coming up to now 10 years pretty much next year. Don't you think 9 years is long enough for a player to show? Because he was the first player that I ever saw come to the academy. And he was the first main star from our academy. So we had other players like Januzaj and James Wilson, if you know, and Cameron Borthwick-Jackson. But those guys never really got into the first team like that. They were there, they played a few games, but they never nailed down a starting spot. Rashford was there though. And we gave him enough chances. You think about it. How many managers has he covered already now? It's Van Gaal, 10. That was Mourinho. One of the best managers in history of football. Number 3, we had Ole. Number 4, now we have Ten Hag. And finally, now 5, Ruben Amorim. This tells me, isn't there some politics behind why Rashford hasn't been able to be dropped at all? Under all these managers, are you telling me all these managers thought he is actually good enough? Because I can tell you one thing. Mourinho did not like him. Do you remember how there were times when even Martial, who he couldn't stand, was starting ahead of Rashford because he just couldn't stand Rashford at all. And he had players playing out of position sometimes. Sometimes Ashley Young would pop up on the left wing because he didn't want to play Rashford. This tells you Rashford is not a likable character in the first place. We can keep talking about we need to give time for Rashford and all that, but what point do we reach when we say it's fine, you can find another player? And this is what I don't understand. Some part of the fan base still thinks we still need to give Rashford time. Guys, he's 27. This is the same thing we did with Jesse Lingard as well. Remember when he came in? We must have thought he was 18 or something because very soon he was 24. Then he was 25. Then 27. And before we know it, by the time he was leaving, he was around 27, I think. And Lingard did not play for that long. But that was just 4 years and we already wanted Lingard gone. Rashford, on the other hand, has had 9 years, 5 managers, out of which I would say Ole's mission was to make Rashford the main man. Ten Hag's mission was to make him the main man. That already covers 5 years that he was supposed to be the main man. And he did not take his opportunity. And you still want to give him another chance. And you still think Rashford is the guy. Every game after Rashford struggles, I see a compilation saying, invest in your stocks now when it's low. Rashford's redemption arc is on the way. Guys, we've been waiting for this for how long? And how long have we waited for it to not come to anything? We've seen the season he had in 2019-20 and the season he had in 22-23. But people are going to say that he had an amazing season. Maybe that's just because of the stats. You really look at it. You look at game per game and how Rashford performed. In 22-23, it might be a misconception that people think he performed good for 4 or 5 months. Because in truth, if you really look at the breakdown, he was on his lightning hot form from December 22 to actually January end. And after that, he was still scoring a few goals, but his performances weren't at that level anymore. And so you could say Rashford had only 1 good month in that entire season. Now you take it back to 1920. Again, you remember how bad it was before Rashford scored against Spurs. Before he did that, the team was in a very similar position to this. We had Martial, Greenwood and Rashford and still we couldn't score goals. And the team was just looking lost. And then Rashford hit his purple patch. Then we got some performances from him all the way from December to somewhere in January, because it was in January where he got that double fracture to his back. And that messed him up completely. So we can say, right, if you really break it down, he's had 2 amazing months at Man United and that's it. And apart from those 2 months, what has he actually done? Let's break it down. You don't see Rashford as a creative. You don't see Rashford's dribbling ability anymore. You don't see his finishing either. He's missing really good chances. He's not getting into positions anymore. What is he actually offering the team? You know what? I'll go one better. If he wasn't there, if there was another player instead of him, do you think we would have got the same output or, in fact, even better? Because here's one thing I'll say. You guys know Jon Visa from Brentford. So they compared his stats, right? From when Brentford came up into the Premier League and Marcus Rashford along the same period. So this is 2021-22 all the way to right now. Think about it. United's big striker, the main man. He has only, I think it was 1 or 2 goals less than Jon Visa in maybe 3 or 4 games less. Rashford has been supposedly the main man since 22, and Visa is just a side character because Mbeumo was more important to Brentford and Ivan Toney was more important to Brentford as well. So now you think about it. It was, I think, around 35 goals, if I'm not wrong. 35 goals in 4 years. That averages to 9 goals a season. This is the guy people say can hit 20 plus goals every season. But the funny fact is, he's never hit more than 17 in his career in a Premier League season. Isaac has been able to do that. Tony's been able to do that. Watkins has been able to do that. Cole Palmer in his first season was able to do that. Then you can go on to Harry Kane, Salah, Son and Aubameyang, Mane and all that. But you see my point. He's never even hit 20 Premier League goals in one season for United. But he's considered as this legend. What has he actually done to earn that status? Not much. Even if you see his stats, his average is half a GA. But yet, he's still given so much time when the only thing that he can boast about is his goals and assists. Because we know when it comes to actual link-up play, Rashford is nearly non-existent. Because whenever he was performing well, who was next to him? Anthony Martial. That is why he succeeded. Because we had Martial and Pogba in the same team, which is why we could give Rashford the service that he wanted. So he was actually the main man. He was given all the tools, anything he wanted. But Rashford was always just the guy who relied on confidence and who said, if I'm not confident, I'm just not going to perform. And he would go missing. One thing that you can't do is just say that, oh, I'm just going to wait till confidence comes, then I'll kick in. Because at least you have to try. And this Carrington tax is too much as well. Because we feel that pretty much Rashford should be our Wayne Rooney. That's what we expected with everything around Rashford and with how the hype was building around him. He should be our Rooney pretty much. Now, it comes to the point of 2020 and he still hasn't shown that in large spells. Just again, like I said, 1920, he had 1 month. So apart from that, he did not show us anything. Yet, people already were gunning for Pogba. People were gunning for Martial. People chased Mkhitaryan out in no time as well. And a little bit later, Jadon Sancho. For actually being technically solid, but maybe they didn't get the same goals and assists as Rashford. So they thought, well, these guys are shit, so we got to chase them out. But this guy, Marcus Rashford, he is from Carrington, so we have to give him all the love and respect that he deserves. But what did that finally get us now? Now we have a player who maybe 9 years later, finally people realize is no good and we should cash in on him. But now it's too late. Because I still remember in 2022, when he was at the peak of his powers, we should have sold him right then. 100 million, I'm pretty sure Paris would have bought him. I'm sure Barcelona would have bought him. There were offers right there. For 100 million pounds, cash in on Rashford, we can move on. But no, we kept sticking to Rashford because we felt, he's going to have a bad season, but he'll come back. Did he come back? No. Because people think that is Rashford's final form and he can always come back to that. Think of it a different way. What if normal Rashford is the Rashford that we've seen for the other months? So let's say out of the 9 years, let's say Rashford is what we've seen for 8 years and 10 months. What if that is the actual Rashford and the other two were actually anomalies? Now you think about it. We were cashing on those 2 months and we thought that is going to make Rashford. But maybe that is not Rashford. Maybe that is just a mask. That was somebody else who just possessed him for those 2 months. And the Rashford that we saw for the other 8 years, that was a real Rashford. This is all we need to remember, guys. Whether that's Garnacho coming up, whether that's all the academy stars that are going to come up in the future, we can't hold them to a completely different standard to the foreign players that we have. So whether that's Zirkzee, whether that's Ahmad, whether that's Rashford, whether that's Garnacho, whether that's Bruno, everybody has to be held to this exact same standard. Because you can't say one player can perform, one player doesn't need to perform because he's just not needed. You need to have some role. Either you're going to be the goals machine, or you're going to be the assist machine, or you're just going to be extremely good in link up that helps our team score more goals. If you don't have one of these three, and we can give you enough time, but if you do not have these three, guys, you have to ship them out. Like, let's see. Like, Garnacho has been given a chance. Rashford has been given a chance. So if you were to ask me, I'd give you 20 games at United. And if you haven't performed, or if you haven't shown me that you have something that you can give in 20 games at United, that means you're not going to cut it. That means we ship you out. We're going to get somebody else. Because guys, remember, we are not a relegation team. We are not a 13th place team that we're showing right now. We are the best club in England by a mile. And you could argue top 3 clubs in the world. So if we are top 3 clubs in the world, if we really think we are that big, the standards have to be there as well. So at the end of the day, Rashford's leaving, and it is what it is. All we need to do is now cash in, pure profit, take that, buy somebody else, replace him, and we move on. It's no more deeper than that. No hard feelings to Rashford or whatever. You didn't make it. But different players don't make it for different reasons. But let him move on with his career. We move on with our process, and we build for the team that we want to build. So Rashford's apparently leaving, and see you all in the next one.